Hi friends. From the looks of it, yes, we are covering Melt Cosmetics Amor Y Mariposas again because currently these items are on sale, very steeply discounted. The entire collection that retails for $4.25 now, you could get it for $1.50. The eyeshadow palette used to be at $70, now $28, okay? The blush palette, $58. Now $23. All the items in this collection are on sale, and it's always hard to determine what items will be popular or not. Maybe this collection didn't do as well for them than previous. And if you saw my original video, especially when you saw the sale notification, you're like, ooh, maybe I should get this. I don't blame you for reconsidering. The Amor Y Mariposas collection holds a very special place in my heart because that is the first piece of Melt Cosmetics PR that I've ever received. I still have the box, and these pieces, of course, did not get rid of them because although I might understand this might not be the most popular collection Melt has ever released, I still think these are solid palettes. So I wanted to film another video in case you bought the eyeshadow palette and or the blush palette, and now you're like, so what do I do with these? Help. Maybe we can create a few looks using the blush and eyeshadow palette, and I will approach this video in the same way how I treat my clients. I am an online flexibility and body weight strength coach, and the demographic I primarily deal with are those who are beginners just getting into the movement practice, and I like to approach makeup in the same way. There are amazing artists here on the space, and I think the eye looks created are phenomenal, but I do know there is a large part of the beauty population that they also love beautiful makeup, but they need a more practical approach to their routine where, sure, they're open to using more color, different textures, different finishes, but in a way that they can apply them quickly, where whatever workspace they find themselves in will be welcoming to the blue and the turquoise, maybe not all over the lid, but on the inner lower lash line. And in regards to this palette specifically, where we have a lot of color, I wanted to cover the different approaches where we can integrate more of the vibrant shades, but in a more practical fashion in terms of the brush that we use, the blending techniques, as well as the blush palette. I think easier to tackle in that because these shades more or less are neutral, maybe with the exception of Flor. Just have to be strategic with where you place it on the cheeks. But yeah, that is the plan for this video. Make sure you're getting your electrolytes, okay? No sugar, just electrolytes. I can't recommend snacks because I don't snack myself, so sorry. Just water on this channel. And once we have everything in place, why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. I'll make sure to include all the makeup I have on my face down in the description box below. In terms of primer, I am using Linda's Crease No More. This is a no shine, no pigment type of primer. Whatever you feel comfortable using, I recommend that you do so with these shadows. Now, in regards to the formula, these shadows are made in Italy, and they're quite soft, softer than I think a lot of Melt mattes found in their 10 or 8 pan eyeshadow palettes. This is a pretty simple format to follow. You see each row has its own color story. It is monochromatic in that respect. Each row includes the matte and metallic shades, some 1, some 2. Now, I would say if you wanted to go willy-nilly, you probably won't watch this video if you already know what to do. But yes, you very much can't jump around from one color story to the other and create something incredibly vibrant. However, if you wanted to approach this much more simply, let's start here in the second row where we have these taupe-like shades paired with the dandelion shade. So you have these two, which are very similar. This is something Melt does. They like to include shades that are similar in pan, but different in undertone. You have one that is neutral, one warmer, and the yellowish shade here. So if you needed a quick one and done eye, and if you're around my skin tone or lighter, if you're deeper, then you will have to find your way into the more violet plum red shades because that's going to provide more depth. So grabbing a big fluffy brush, this is my Sonia G Detail Pro. Señales is the cooler of the two, and I'm placing that now in the crease in a sweeping fashion. And I do have moderate lid space and quite a lot of area to work with. But no, you can use a smaller brush to get the color through the crease. That is Señales, perfect for just giving the crease a little bit of shading, a little bit of depth. You could then follow with a black-brown pencil, some mascara, and you're done. To take a look at Teodoro, this is the warmer of the two. If you wanted to shift the tone a little bit, Instead of going cool neutral, you want to go more warm neutral. And what I like about the Detail Pro is not only will it deposit color through the crease, but it will naturally deposit some on the lid. So these are great one and done shadow colors for my skin tone. Again, if you're deeper than me, you will have to go the violet plum route, and I can still show what those shades look like when applied in the same manner. So here is Señales, a little cooler, Teodoro, a little warmer, but crazy that you see these colors in the pan. The way they applied, totally unexpected, especially for me. I haven't used this palette in a bit, and I'm happy to revisit it because I think it important to use what we have, you know what I'm saying? And respective colors now on the lower lash line. This is a step I personally like to take. You can keep the color just on the crease and lid if you want, but I like more of a hazy look to my shadow. I won't go beyond this point as I would like to apply more to continue the lesson, but you can stop here. Again, a little liner or mascara. If you want it to stay in the palette, you can take Charro or any of the deeper colors here that do come with a warning. You can see those warnings on the website, I believe on the box, not on the actual palette, unfortunately. Some of these pigments are not approved for eye use. People go in anyway, but just proceed with caution if you do have a history with irritation with the ingredients found in some of these reddish purpley shades. Taking Nueva Vida with my little flat finer. Now in the outer portion of my lash line, this is definitely more red than a dark brown, but if you wanted to use more of the palette, then you can utilize the shade as a really pretty shadow liner. Instead of using typical brown black, why not? Maybe this can be a new color for you in terms of the lining family. And I think that's quite nice. And again, these powders are very soft, easy to apply. If we wanted to go the other way, Maria, this is definitely more plum in undertone. Now on the Teodoro side, which is a lot warmer in undertone. I'm telling you, the flat definer, I forgot how much this brush kills applying shadow liner. It's kind of ridiculous. A little messy, but we have Maria here, which is the more plum. We have Nueva Vida, which is more plum red. I think these are great approaches to, again, simplifying the palette, but getting nice doses of color in an accessible way, an approachable way. If you wanted to apply a little bit of the shimmers here, Tequila is, I think this is just the like the gold. That's nice. Mesquite is a little more punchy. That's where you got the copper. So if you wanted to keep it low key, we can take Tequila maybe on the center of one of the lids. So I picked that up with my Worker Two. A very light dose because this finish offers a beautiful scatter effect where you don't have to overload the lid with a metallic shade. I think these are very soft and easy to apply, and because it's transparent, you can dab over the liner carefully so as to not smudge your work. And then you have that really nice sheen across the lid. You can still see the color through your crease. Let's get the phone. You know we gotta do the light show. Burr, burr, burr. So here's what Tequila looks like. I think this is a great shadow. It hardens a little bit in pan, but the Worker 2 has great pickup capabilities where it's going to take the twinkle, but it doesn't feel dry or look dry on the lid. It's actually quite soft. If you wanted, you can take the blender you originally used for the first matte just to dust the edges. And look at that. I think that's so pretty. We're doing so good. Mesquite, if you're my complexion or deeper, I think this will be a great shade to place on your lid. This is a little different in texture than Tequila. Tequila is softer, has a little more of like that translucent lay down. Mesquite is going to give you a little more. If you want to see what that looks like, still using my Worker 2 and now placing that on the lid. So you see there, we're getting more of like a copper golden look to the eye. And just to not disturb again the wing liner, I take the tip of the brush above it and then blend it out to follow that slight sweep. Light flicking here. Look at that. We're doing so good. You want it, you could take tequila with a smaller brush and place that on the inner corner of this eye. And while I understand we didn't use mensaje can be used in this manner. So first of all, you can be done. Lashes, mascara, no mascara, however you roll with your eye looks. Let's take a slightly smaller brush. This is my Sonia G Crease Pro. Dabbing in some mensaje. But now on the inner portion, this is more of like a dandelion type of a shade, but soft enough where you can introduce it to the inner corner of your brow, lid area, just to introduce another color there, lightly, okay, if you wanted, or you can exclusively use this color through the crease instead of Señales. But I thought Señales was just a great go-to color, as well as Te Adoro to start with. Through the crease, you know what I'm saying? Maybe mensaje on the lower lash line. That's nice too. If you wanted to jump around a little bit, we could go to Mariposa, which is gonna have a little bit more than the previous colors that I just applied. So that is Mariposa. Okay, it's a little more vibrant. Where can we put more vibrant colors that won't interfere with what we got going on top? So with that said, I think the best strategy is to introduce this color to the inner lower lash line. Now it is orangey, so you do run the risk of the sickly looking eye, but I think it okay. Depending on your skin tone will determine if you take this step or not. If you wanted, take a little bit of Mariposa, overlapping it with the red plum shade to have a little bit of shine on the inner part of the eye and still have the deeper color run across through and out the edge of the lash line, so you can create a subtle gradient there. You could, if you want it, you could take a little bit, just a little bit, and lightly tap on the inner part of the lid. So we don't want to overwhelm the lid with this color per se. We're trying to achieve a very light gradient of color to not overwhelm the skin. It's just gently introducing the more vibrant tangerine shade into the champagne shade, okay? We had Mariposa on the inner corner of the liner, so we already had that color to then bring in Mariposa a little bit more on the inner lid. You see what we're doing here? And just to keep things simple, placing tequila here on the inner corner just for some highlight, yeah. Now for blush, I mean, you can go several ways. One of my most favorite colors here in this palette is Sonrisa. This orangey, like burnt brown color is exquisite. So let's apply that on one side of the face, see how that looks like. Taking my Sonia G Hinoki large brush, tapping into Sonrisa. Where should I put this? I think this is gonna be, these blushes, man, it's gonna be a apples of the cheek color. I'm gonna whip that around. That's pretty. I'm gonna tappity tap. Now, some of these are shimmery. We can take Feliz on the very tops of the cheeks and have it trail upwards to get a little bit of shine there. Yes, yes, yes. And then whip it all around once everything has been applied. These powders pack a punch, man. Whoa. Or we can take Milagritos, which is a lot lighter, but it's still, you know, there's some lay down there. And I'm more liberal here with the application because it doesn't have as much pigment on me like Sonrisa does. But you see there's a little bit of pink there. Now with Vida, on again the tops of the cheekbones, but maybe a little higher too, because that's really nice shine there. And when everything is applied, you can whip it around, do what you need to do. For lipstick, I gotta dip out. What am I gonna apply now? Congratulations to Tara Lynn, who recently collaborated with Christian Audette. It was so nice to send me her new lip set. So why don't we apply this? Going in with Natasha Denona's lip liner in Naya, and applying Tara Lynn's Christian Audette collab color in Bare Nectar, and lip glow gloss in Ray. Let's apply some lashes, and I'll be right back. So here is the finished look for round 2. I absolutely love how both eyes turned out, and great to know we created these subtle looks with little balances of color from a palette that looks like this, right? I'm sure if you showed your friend like, what palette did you use to get those looks? You show them this and you're like, whoa! And perhaps this is a launch pad for you to experiment with more color, where to place it, how much you apply on your lid, inner corner, crease, which we'll explore now further, maybe with the greens and the coral plum shades. So that's what we'll do with the next round, play with the greens a little bit, maybe start with one color looks and then slowly start to add on. And yeah, I'll be back here in a bit. Let's try one color at a time to achieve a washed out look. Cariño is, I think, more of like a minty hue of a shade. It's very soft. So when you see this in the palette, you might think, uh-oh, is that gonna be too much? I think patting it down on the lid first to lay down the color, and then turning the brush on its side to whisk the edges. So that's a very light serving of the green. You can keep this as is. You can also apply any of the deeper greens as a shadow liner. I'm taking Sentimientos to pat down on the outer part of the lid and taking some on the lower part of the lid also. Tapping that in and around, and this will create a little more depth of color as well as a stronger green look to the eye. Applying that same shade on the inner part of the lid to get a little more thoof. If you want to, you can stay with this green or travel down to one of the neutral shades here and then whisk that color on the edges of the crease. I like this method instead of going with the crease color first, depending on the textures of the shadows. These are very soft and I feel they will present more color richness when applied on the lid first, right on the primer. Then taking Sentimientos here on the outer part of the lash line with Cariño, the lighter green, on the majority of the lash line. So this is pretty intense, yes, as a one and done look. I know with all the greens, it could be a little in your face. However, if you want it to be more chill, then I think you will have to do one color at a time instead of layering them like I did. But I don't think it's actually that bad. I don't think it's too in your face. And again, these textures are very soft, where when blending, they don't leave behind that strong dose of color. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's very cielito lindo with my finger right between the mattes and not applying a whole lot, and then whisking the edges out so that can appear more diffused in order to have a little bit more shine on the center of the lid. And same shade now, right smack on the center of my lower lash line. I always like to place a shimmer topper type of a texture on the center of the lid. I think it just gives the lower lash line a nice pop of shine. Cariño on the inner part of the eye, as I think for my skin tone an appropriate shade to place for highlight. If you want, you can go back to Tequila. I'm actually tapping into that shade, and because it's so lightweight, it will pick up a little bit of the Cariño shade but still brighten it because of the sparkle. Gualbuchil on the outer part. Let's start with this eye. And this is the deepest green out of the bunch. Is more of an army, it's more of a deep army green. So probably will be treated more as a neutral shade. I'm using that primarily to create this deeper bracket of color on the outer part of my lid. So I place some here and now softly taking it through the crease and down here on the outer part of the lower lash line. Then taking a blender brush without any product to softly diffuse the edges. Depending on how far you want to take the shadow out will determine how far you blend from the edge of your lash line. If you want to keep the color tighter, then definitely circular motions in toward the crease from the lash line point. If you feel more confident in taking it out farther, then use light flicking motions out to create that effect. With Sentimientos on the inner part, continuing from where Gualmuchil ended to have this gradient occur. And now with Michoacan Worker Two, lightly here on the inner part of the lid. I'm intentionally using this brush. It will not pick up as much as a finger. Doing that on purpose to create a more washed out look. If you want the teal shade to look more prominent, more shiny, then definitely use a finger. but I'm using a brush now to have a lighter dose of that color. And then I'm using the edge of the brush to take that color on the inner part to brush it up into that space. If you want Cielito Lindo on the inner part here, I think that will create a nice gradient into the deeper teal shade. I'm also bringing that on the lower inner part of my lash line. Yeah, okay. Tequila, why not? Overlapping Cielito Lindo. I think this is very nice. I know I didn't pop around too much. You can create a super color blocking look, I think, when jumping from here to here. If you're not into that strategy, I think you're safe if sticking with these two rows, right? Exclusively with each other. This row is easy to mix up with either, right? Because it's the neutral row. However, if you wanted to combine two, you can use any of these shades to buff out the greens, or greens as wing liner instead of the more plum coral shades. So that's how you can move around from one color story to the other. With the greens, I feel more comfortable keeping them together, but using different layering methods in terms of the deeper green or the more minty seafoam green, depending on the intensity of the eye and what hue of green you want to achieve with your look. Keeping the blush combination, because I think these shades are pretty neutral with the green. I will change my lip color into something more tan. This is Suqqu Fluid Lip Fog in 08. Yep, that's the one. Maybe with a little bit of Naya too. Why not? All right, let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. And here we have close-ups of our green looks, just showcasing the different ways we can layer them and not necessarily producing strongly colored green looks, right? The application, the brush you use, the pressure you apply on your lids will determine how bold these looks will appear. And despite using army green, teal, mint colors, I think these shades are quite approachable. And saying only for those individuals who are not really into the color thing during the week, maybe, you know, these are your color cheat days, if you will, where you have the opportunity to have more fun with those types of shades, as opposed to someone who will wear this on the everyday. Maybe they love greens and these softer textures, perhaps a nice departure from the more hardier ones that you can find within the Mel Cosmetics collection in itself, but this is an easier vibe. Now you see I don't have any shadow on because I'm trying to get this as moving as possible and wanted to start right away after speaking about the greens. That means we're getting into the corals. Now again, these are the danger shades, where if you have sensitive eyes, these contain the pigments that are not supposedly deemed eye safe, where they could irritate your eyes and what have you if you're not too careful. But we're gonna live dangerously today, okay? I'm gonna be very careful, but please proceed with caution. I'm looking at Abuelita, and I just wanna whip this all over to, you know, if we're going one and done, summery, just using one shade from this row to create just a bright, vibrant look, then Abuelita is the way to go. In the similar fashion in round one, when blending the neutral shades through my crease, but also bringing some of that shade on the lid and taking a smaller brush now on the lower lash line to wrap the color around the eye. Now, if you found that the blend got a little out of hand, I do use a bigger brush. What you can now rely on, so I like to do a smaller concealer brush with no additional product, patting around the far edges to blend down some of the color and to take it away. And that's going to leave a softer gradient out from your lash line. Yeah, if you just needed to dial down the woof a little bit. Now Mariposa, if you want to keep it soft, taking a brush, wiggling back and forth and striking it on top of Abuelita. That's going to have a beautiful tangerine coral gradient. Yes, a little bit of that orange with the coral shade. If you want more color payoff, more shine payoff, then definitely apply with your finger. Going back to Tequila on the inner part of the eye, and also pulling it towards the inner lower lash line. If you want it, you can use any of these deeper shades to create more intensity on the outer lash line. You can also use the wing liner approach. I kind of like how this is going so far. We can keep it as is. If you wanted, you can also just do Abuelita through the crease and maybe place a deeper shade on the lid and just call it a day. So you can go all matte instead of introducing the shimmers to the inner lid and inner corner. Let's go back up to Mensaje because we haven't seen this color solo. And I'm starting off the look by placing Mensaje through the crease and then Almohada on the outer part. So I'm tapping that first and then bringing it up toward the first shade, blending down. Something I like about this texture is that they are softer than typically formulated melt matte shadows, which could be disadvantageous for someone who loves that in-your-face bold texture that melt matte shadows bring to the table. But there's something I think easier in terms of the blending capabilities of these mattes, which I feel it's just easier all around to blend and mix colors. Sagrado now on the majority or whatever's left open on the lid. And this is like a lovely plummy coral shade, which I think fantastic with the deeper purple one. If you want more color, then I'll take my finger, and that's definitely, you'll see it right then and there. It's going to place a lot more shine on the lid. Perla on the majority of the lower lash line. This is more of a red, well, definitely all red. So if you don't like this sickly look, then beware. A little bit of almohada on the outer part of the lash line to create a nice gradient there. And I did this, and now let's hop up to Mesquite. Mesquite is that beautiful copper shade. I'm placing that on the inner part of my lower lash line. And this is where you could get a little crazy. So you could just stick to Tequila, which is this color here that we've used for the majority of the demos to create highlight. Or why not use Cielito Lindo on the inner part of the eye. A great way to introduce another shade. This, I feel, is the beginner approach to color blocking if you wanted to go this route, right? Because it's fun to use as many colors as possible if you have this many at your disposal. I understand, however, if you want to go simpler, right? Use 1 or 2 colors at a time. But this is why we buy palettes and hopefully not buy a ton, as it truly helps us just dive into one palette at a time and use it as much as we can, discovering more ways to combine the colors, not feel stressed that we have to use this palette or that palette, but zeroing in on one makeup product at a time to get a really great handle of what we can use. And because I have to go soon, this is going to be the eye makeup for training. While we live, we will have 2 different eyes. It's totally fine. I do want to pop into this blush palette once more before we call it a day. If you wanted to go brighter, let's take Flor, and this is my little Hinoki brush. Oh my gosh, these powders pack a punch, but as you see, they diffuse quickly. And you can place this lower on the cheeks if you want more of like that rush of color, or higher. Conmigo is going to give a little more depth. So I'm placing that on the hollows on this side. And you see some Flor was left over on the bristles. And when you mix them together, you get like this toasty hot pink color on the hollows, which is great. Mixing Feliz and Vida and placing that more on the apples of the cheeks and trailing that high to give a little more color. And why not placing more here on the apples? Yes, yes. I already have some fluid fog on, but why don't we apply a little bit of Tara Lynn's color here on the center to bring forward more of the pink peachy coral shade. Ooh, we got a move and groove, or else they're gonna miss this train. We're gonna be late. And that is it, fam. Here are some close-up shots of our final look, and I am thrilled to have dove back into these 2 palettes. It caused a resurgence of curiosity and enthusiasm to use these palettes again and more often. And more importantly, I hope this video helped to instill some confidence. If you bought the palette but were still apprehensive about your purchase, you're like, okay, I know it was cheaper than the previous price, but how am I going to use this palette when it arrives? Again, just taking your time, using 1 or 2 colors at a time, and you'll familiarize yourself with the textures, with the color story, and before you know it, it'll just be very easy for you to create softer but colorful looks that, again, won't make you feel intimidated to go out with that look, will then maybe encourage you to mix more colors together, to do one eye color, to maybe play with like the washed out tones of colors and not just stick to the neutrals. And the same thing with the blush palette. I think these tones are perfect to mix and match, to layer them one on top of the other. And this is a great summertime blush palette because the tones are there, these burnt, bright pink, brown pink, the shimmery shades on the cheeks, I think would be great for that vibe. So let me know down below if you picked up these palettes, if you picked them up last year, how you feel about it, what thoughts you have. I'll see you down in the comments, fam. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, Melt Cosmetics extravaganza, monthly favorites, or vlog. I know I haven't done one in a while, but maybe it's still coming. Take care, and I will see you again soon.